U.S. Constitution, the final of our videos. 3 parts. Be able to list them and describe each part. Start the timer! You're yelling way too much today, Mr. Dietrich. Just way too much yelling going on. Seat's a little too low. Timer started. Preamble, articles, amendments. We've talked about the preamble. We've talked about the articles. Now let's get into the amendments and zoom through here. Look at all this. You remember talking about all these things? Of course you do. That was just a couple days ago. And then we did Article 5. How do you add amendments to the Constitution? And so today, let's talk about the specific amendments, the 27 changes that have been added to the U.S. Constitution. Article 6, the Supreme Law of the Land. The Bill of Rights refers to the first 10 amendments of the U.S. Constitution. These were added very quickly. They were added immediately, technically, 1791, and they were used to convince people to approve the Constitution because, like I've talked about before, we the people are giving our power to the government. That freaks out a lot of people. We're going to give our power to the government? Whoa. You really, step back. Think about this. Do we really want to give our power to the government? This could be a bad deal. They could turn into a king. They could abuse us. Let's think about this for a second. And so someone else says, whoa, here's the deal. I get it. You're freaked out about giving your power to the government because you're afraid they're going to abuse you and take away your rights. That's what happens when you give someone a bunch of power. What we're going to do is if you agree to pass this Constitution, you agree to approve and ratify this Constitution, we guarantee you the government's not going to abuse your rights. And how are you going to do that? How are you going to guarantee to me that the government's not going to abuse me and take away my rights? Here's what we'll do. We'll add another part to the Constitution, and in this part, we'll call it the Bill of Rights. And these 10 changes that we're going to add right now, these 10 changes I'm going to write in the Constitution right now that convince you to agree to the whole thing. The whole purpose of these 10 changes, these amendments that I'm adding, are specifically to calm you down, get you not to freak out, and to guarantee that we're going to protect you. We're going to protect every single one of your rights, because you're worried you're giving too much power to the government and the government's going to abuse you. I'm going to guarantee you right now that they can't by writing it on paper. All right, well, tell me more about these Bill of Rights. What specifically are you going to guarantee that you protect? Before I sign this and give all of my power over to the government so that they can, promote the general welfare, provide for the common defense, and domestic tranquility and secure the blessings of liberty, before I say, all right, we the people are going to give our power to the government to do these things, because I am kind of freaked out, the government's going to abuse me, what specifically are you going to protect? Good question. We agree to protect your religions. You can believe in whatever you want. The government cannot infringe upon your religion. You have freedom of religion. Believe in whatever you want. You like to believe in a flying spaghetti monster. I'm not even going to judge you. I'm not going to say you can, you can't. If you go home and you cook up a bunch of pasta and you worship and praise it, more power to you. The government protects that right. You have the right to assemble, to gather together, to protest, speak your mind, to form a group of people. The government cannot infringe upon that. Okay, not bad so far. The freedom of press, which means you have newspapers and TV news and you can say whatever you want as long as you're not making stuff up and you're not liable or slandering anyone. You can speak your mind if you don't like the government, if you don't like some of the government's actions, you don't like what certain people are doing, you don't like what certain businesses are doing. You have the freedom of the press to write in the news, to put it on the internet, and to let people know what's going on. And the government cannot shut you up. The government cannot stop you. You have the right to petition. If you want to make a change, you can officially petition the government and ask for this change. You can get everyone to sign it and we can say, government, we need a Funyuns law. You also have the freedom of speech. The government will not take away your right to speak your mind. If you agree to this U.S. Constitution, one of the additional changes that we're going to add on here is to protect your freedom of speech, and you can speak your mind, and the government is not going to get in the way of what you say, and the government is going to protect what you're going to say. If someone tries to shut you up, the government is going to say, no, you can't stop this man from speaking. He has the right to speech. Can I say whatever I want? No. So these are not absolute, okay? You have the freedom of religion, but if your religion is to, I don't know, sacrifice human beings, no, you can't do that. These are not absolute. There is a limit to all of these freedoms, just like the freedom of press. You can write newspaper articles and you can write stories, but you can't make stuff up about people and ruin their lives, okay? Your rights, these rights that we're going to protect, they go as far as you go. Once you start harming other people, that's where your right ends. If you are exercising a right like freedom of press and you're writing a news article that makes fun of someone and makes up unfair stories and harms someone, that is no longer a right. You get it? You can assemble together and you can protest, but if you start breaking windows and smashing windows and setting fires and harming other people, that's where your rights end. You get it? Your freedom of speech. You can say a lot of things, but once you start to say things that put other people's lives in danger, and we'll define this later on as clear and present danger, if your rights do that, then you don't have the rights. All right, I'll accept it. Good, you don't really have a choice. Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Can I own a nuclear bomb? No, that's a stupid question. Can I? Just don't ask, you get it. You can own weapons, all right? You have the right to weapons and the government's not going to take it away. I don't want to go into any more details. Privacy, you have the right to privacy. The government will not take it. The Fifth Amendment explains you have the right to due process, which means the government cannot take your rights away without following a process. If you're accused of doing something, hey, that you just stole from the guy down on 3rd Street, throw him in jail. Whoa, 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 whoa. You need to prove that he did it. You need to find evidence that he did it. You need witnesses that say he did it. And then you also need a jury that agrees that he did it. That is due process. We can't just skip all of those and take someone's right away. We can't just skip all of those and execute people. Every person in this country has the right to due process, or you are owed or due a process. So if you agree to pass the U.S. Constitution, you agree to follow our Constitution, we're going to guarantee that we protect these rights, and this is a very big right. The right that the government cannot take your rights away. The government cannot take your life, the government cannot take your liberty, and the government cannot take your property without following due process. They can throw you in jail if they follow a process. They can execute you if you follow a process. But guess what? Don't do anything stupid and you don't have to worry about it. The rights of accused, we're going to protect you in court. We're going to protect you in civil cases. We're not going to torture you. And just because we didn't write it down doesn't mean it doesn't. Because look, we can't write everything down. There are tons of rights out there. And if we were going to write everything down, the Constitution would be 3,332 pages long. It would be way too big. So the 9th Amendment just says, look, there's other rights out there. We just can't write everything down. Right? We can't do it. We ain't got no more got time for that. And then the 10th Amendment, look, states have rights too. Your individual state, they can make up some of their own rules. And if the U.S. government doesn't talk about it, and if we don't put it in the original Constitution, then that stuff's saved or reserved for the state. The federal government gets to do their thing. This is federalism. But the states can do stuff too. Like if the states want to run the hospitals, that's up to them because we're not really talking about it in the Constitution. There's nothing in the Constitution in Article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 or the preamble about schools. It might be hinted when we talk about promoting the general welfare, but nowhere in there does it specifically say what branch of the government gets to make schools, what kind of laws there are for schools, how long you go to school, what has to be taught in school, how many hours a day. It's not in there. So we don't talk about it. So the 10th Amendment will say that anything we don't talk about in the Constitution, it's up to you and your state. What if my state doesn't want to have school? Then don't. It's up to you. And we can't tell you anything about it. That's the beauty of the 10th Amendment. We're going to give you and your state some authority. So why don't you agree to this U.S. Constitution in the year 1791 so that we can get this country rolling? And this is us kind of like greasing the wheel. We want you to approve it. We know you're worried about the government, but look at this 10th Amendment. Doesn't that really get you? You're worried about the government having too much power. I'm right here telling you with this 10th Amendment that we're not even taking all the power. We're going to let your own local state government have some power. All right, sounds like a cool idea. So More amendments later. Well, today, right now, we got 5 minutes. We'll roll. So let's roll through. So there it is again. Here is the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. They were designed to protect the specific rights of individuals. They were used to also convince people to pass the Constitution. They are the first 10 of the 27 amendments. Again, you had to get 66% of Congress to pass, and then you had to get the individual states to pass to add these amendments to the Constitution. Here they all are in a little bit more detail. I'm not going to go into them. Fifth Amendment is due process, and it says the government has to government must treat you fairly. They cannot unfairly take your rights away. They must follow a process. What is it specifically? So let's give you an example of no due process. This is an easy way of understanding. So, you're a criminal. You did something bad, and then we just kill you. That's no due process. You are violating my rights. I have the right to due process. So what the government must do is they have to arrest you. Then they have to have a trial. They have to have evidence. They have to follow a procedure. Then they can kill you. They can do that because that is due process. If they follow the process, if they follow the rules, if they follow the procedures and they're fair, then yes, they can lock you up for years and years and years. Or in some cases, they can execute you. Sounds pretty harsh, and let's not really worry about that so much. It's just kind of an interesting thing to put there. But you have to be proven guilty. They cannot just assume that you're guilty and punish you. They must follow a process, right? That's the big thing that we worry about. When we give our power to the government, we are worried that they're going to abuse that power and they're going to take away our freedoms, mainly our right to be free, our right to property, our right to the pursuit of happiness. We're worried the government's going to lock us up, or we're worried the government might kill us. And due process says, no, the government can't do that. The government cannot just take away your rights. Now, in some cases, they can because you have committed a crime. But even if you have committed a crime, they must prove that you have committed a crime before they can take your rights away. It's not easy for the government to use its power to take your rights away. I'll repeat that. It's not easy for the government to use its power to take your rights away. And that's the way we want it. We're giving a lot of power to the government, and that is kind of scary. So we made sure 200 years ago that when we wrote the Constitution, we made it very difficult for the government to take your rights away. I'm sold. I'm totally in on this. Tell me more about this U.S. Constitution. I like it. 13th Amendment. So these are some of them where we'll highlight some of the more important amendments. The 13th Amendment will abolish slavery. Abraham Lincoln will help push this law through in 1865, and slavery after the Civil War is illegal. Slavery does not exist. We made an amendment. We got 66% of Congress to approve it. We got 75% of the votes of the states, which is easy to do when half of the country is no longer part. Like a lot of the slave states weren't a part of the country. So it's easy to get 75% of the states to vote when the only states remaining in the country are the free states. Well, that's kind of cool. The 14th Amendment defines citizenship. One of the biggest parts here is the equal protection and due process. So again, the idea of due process. So not only the federal government must be very fair and makes it very hard for them to take your rights away, but also the individual state governments must follow your due process rights. It also creates equal protection, equal laws for everyone. Amendment 16, gots to pay taxes. Why? Why did we add that amendment? Why did we add the income tax? Why did Congress 66? How did it? That's not possible. 66% of you said, yeah, it'd be a good idea if we have to give our money to the government. And then 75% of the states said, yeah, that's cool. Take our money. What were you people thinking? I mean, I guess it's good. The government needs money to pay for stuff, but we've already talked about 11,000 amendments have been proposed, and only 27 made it through. And that one made it through? This is that fake news? Is this the real world? Is this real? Is this thing real? Are we here? Huh? Like, is this a fake microphone? What's going on? 11,000 amendments, and that one made it through? Come on. Now, the 15th Amendment, going backwards, gives African-American men or black men the right to vote. You're losing your mind, Mr. Dietrich. The 18th Amendment made alcohol illegal. The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. The 21st Amendment made alcohol legal again. Wait, what are we doing? Like, it's very hard to pass an amendment, and we somehow were able to make alcohol illegal in the United States. And then a couple years later, like, no, redo, make alcohol. Like, what's going on? It's so hard to make an amendment, and then we make an amendment, and then we reverse the rules of the amendment. We say 18, no more alcohol, and then we say, no, we're wrong, 21, bring the alcohol back. All right, so let's hit the timer, and 24 gets rid of poll taxes and all these specific rules that were limiting people's rights to vote. 26, change the voting age to 18. Those are your amendments. That's it. Preamble, articles, and the amendments. Those are the three parts. Know how to basically describe what does the preamble do. It's the introduction that states the purpose of the government. The articles goes into the specific details of how the government goes about its job every day. And then the amendments are the stuff we forgot. It's the changes. Changes.